inside voice instead of my outdoors voice. So if you can't hear me, just yell, outdoors voice!
Yeah. Outdoors voice!
That works.
Thanks, guys. Good. I hope we'll have enough pizza and beer. Wow. Anyway, so I'm going to talk to you about Guvnor. Maybe I'm going to talk about Guvnor. Guvnor, right. So Guvnor is a node process manager. And I know there are lots and lots of node process managers. I'm going to come on to why I felt the need to reinvent the wheel in a minute. So who am I? My name's Alex. I run the Node box of London with that nut job over there. Sometimes I run Dim.js. We had a few meetups last summer. Haven't had one this year yet. I'm based in Bank at the moment. If anyone knows a good place to meet dim sum near Bank, let me know because I really want to organise another one. I wrote PM2 Web, which you've probably never heard of. Some people use it for monitoring PM2 hosts in a web browser. I've just started working for Yield. They paid for the pizza and the beer.
Yeah.
Go Yield.
Yeah.
Right, so why write a process manager? That's why. Barbara stands for build a robot, brew a real ale. So I basically made a robotic brewery, which looks a bit like that. So you can see there's a Raspberry Pi down there, there's a couple of Arduinos. The more elaborate version has some Beagle bones and also essentially lots of very low-powered hardware. All running Linux, all running Node. It's plugged into the mains, which is great. So I'm doing it because I wasn't allowed to make a brewery at home because it smells terrible. I managed to talk a friend into letting me do it in the basement of his shop, which has interesting complications because I don't always have physical access to the machine. So if something crashes, I can't necessarily reboot it. I have to wait to get in and unplug cables and that kind of thing. That's a relay. It can handle 8 amps. It's plugged into an aquarium heater that's plugged into a big garden trug that has water in it and then a fermentation vessel. The idea being to keep the temperature constant at all times. To be honest, the robot brewery would have probably made a better talk than this one. Maybe I'll do another one. But anyway, so it is plugged into the mains. It could catch fire at any time, but it hasn't yet. Good. So existing process managers, there are lots. I kind of figure there are 2 different types, the bare bones ones and fully featured ones. So bare bones ones are like Forever. So hands up who's using Forever in production. Group people. Mon and Mon group. Anyone using Mon in production? People at back. So they're great. I mean, so Forever is like the granddaddy of all these process managers. It's very reliable, it's very stable, but it doesn't do very much, which is good, you know, from the Unix philosophy, but like I can't get into that basement when the shop's locked, which is problematic. Mon is also lovely, it's written in C, I'm told it doesn't leak, which is good, but again, it also does not very much at all. So it's probably quite easy to make it not leak. So then you've got fully featured ones, PM2 being the most obvious. Hands up who uses PM2 in production. Not as many as Forever. That's interesting. So this one was the one that kind of caught my eye initially, which is why I ended up writing PM2 Web. So, because it's got this great module, PM2 interface, which lets you get a programmatic handle on the daemon itself and what's going on. It's based on Axon RPC. At the time, it uses TCP sockets, and essentially you just say daemon bind host 0.0.0. And you can connect to it from anywhere, which is like fantastic. Now I can connect to these things, but there's no security at all because Axon doesn't support it very well. There was a pull request that got ignored because TJ flipped his shit and left Node. Boring. Anyway, so I wrote that using PM2 interface, which is great for a little while until version 0.11. Version 0.11, they switched to using Unix sockets by default, which is much safer, because now you can control access to everything by groups and users and all that good stuff that people have been relying on for decades. But there's no remote access because the sockets are deployed as a file on the file system, so you can't access it from a remote host. Which means that you couldn't monitor multiple hosts anymore, so now I can't access all of my connected devices that are brewing my beer. Very boring. And in the subsequent version, they recommended that if you want to run processes as multiple users, what you should do is you should start an instance of PM2 for every user and get that instance of PM2 to manage the processes per user, which is not really a runner on a small device with only 512 megs of RAM, because each node process uses a certain amount, and then you can't run very many, and how boring. So Guvnor came along. I say, strongly released Arc recently, which is another process manager. I don't care. So at the time it wasn't there, so that's why I started writing Guvnor. Also, like, you know, it does a lot of, like, a lot. I don't really dig the whole vendor lock-in thing, so no. Anyway, so everyone's still Guvnor, and it's that simple. No, of course it's not that simple. It's almost that simple. You have to use unsafe perm because it uses a lot of native modules, and you just get a lot of spurious noise in the logs about accessing /root/.node.js, blah, 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 blah. Easier to use that, and all your problems will go away. So it's based on dnode RPC, written by Substack. Yay, Substack. Unix sockets, the same as the more recent version PM2. I'll come on to the remote access thing. It supports multiple users, so you run the daemon itself as root. And then, yeah, so it'll try and spawn the processes as the user that you want it to. So enough talking, it's time for a demo. This is where it all starts to go wrong. You can all read that, right?
A little larger if you could.
There we go. Right. So I'm root. It's nice actually. I left my laptop here, plugged in, turned on the screensaver, terminal logged in as root.
Don't do that.
I hope there's no keylogger installed now. If not, thanks for it. Anyway, so gov status. So yeah, it's not running, right? So I just run gov and it will start the daemon. So I've got no running processing. So I can change to a different user. This is me. So I've got some node processes in here. So I can start hello world. Alright, so it's running. Now it's running for a few seconds. What does it do? Well, it just says hello world. Like, you know, you can only put hello world. So if I do gov logs, I should start to see hello world. Yeah, so it's running in the background, which is great. And you can see it's running as me, even though the daemon itself was started as root. So, you know, logs are nice. Great, brilliant. So, more logs. So now I've got some logs in color. Obviously, you can see it's interpolating logs from both processes. So I could do something like gov logs, colorful.js, and I would just see the colorful ones, apart from the ones with the colorful one. Well, but, you know, it's random. Great. So we can do more interesting stuff. So I've got this one, crash on message. So you register a listener for process, and when it receives this message, next tick it will throw an error. So if I do gov start crash on message, started gov list, I can see it. And I do gov send crash on message. I send my custom thing. Interesting, nothing happened. So somebody got a restart. So it's still running, and it's been restarted. Minimum viable process manager. Okay, good. What else? Well, so going on the command line is all good and well. We can do better than that. Right, so presentation mode. GovWeb. This is why most people come to Guvnor, because it's got the web thing. Demo, great. So web thing, it's very eloquent. Right, GovWeb. So I can start the web application. Later on, there's going to be some stuff that involves accessing the internet. So that's going to be the actual, yardstick of how interesting the talk is, because everyone starts like tuning out, checking Twitter. They start like, downloading BitTorrent files and that kind of thing. Suddenly I can't access GitHub anymore, and the whole thing falls over. So there we go. So they have me, my laptop, we've got some statistics about what's going on. The version of Guvnor you're running, which version of Node you're running. Despite the shirt, I'm a hipster, so I'm running io.js. My uptime has been very gay, it's fantastic. Look, and then you can see how much memory I'm using. You can get live load on the CPUs if you don't want to see the user processes. All that good stuff. Right, so over here you'll see we've got some processes. So we've got a list of processes running exactly the same things you see on the command line. You guys hear me in the back?
Outdoor boys.
Okay! Over here! Right, so you can see Hello World has you've got your memory usage, so you've got a resident set size, you've got your heap and used and the total heap size. You want to know what resident set size is? So it's the amount of memory that your process is consuming that's currently resident in memory. So your process might be consuming a gig, but you might only have a couple hundred megs actually in memory. The rest is in swap space on the hard drive or something like that. So it's a useful thing. So you've got your nodes. It's great. We'll go back to it for a second because you've got CPU usage. And then the event loop latency, so this is quite useful to just know when your app dying, and you can see it over time. Guvnor Web is actually running under Guvnor, so it's a bit more interesting to look at because it's substantially heavier than Hello World. So you can see when it started up, it had a big CPU spike, which I really need to look into. But after that, it's pretty good. It's latency is very low. So you can talk to your application from here and you can control it. So I can run garbage collection, and so hopefully, see, and all the memory drops. Only a little bit reclaimed from actual RAM mode. So you've got a debug button. So there's Node Inspector running in the background. Those who remember from the first talk, they mentioned it doesn't work with anything past Node 11, which is why you can't see anything. When they fix it, it'll be fixed here. So it does work when you're running Node 10, which is nice because you can put breakpoints in and you can talk to your applications and all this kind of stuff. I'm not going to restart Guvnor Web because I'm looking at Guvnor Web, so I can restart my Hello World app, and boom, it restarts. And then I look at my process list and I can see Hello World's now got a restart on there. It tells me here as well how many restarts, so I can restart it and it will update live on there, which is cool. So I can stop the app as well. It hangs around in the process list because otherwise it will disappear without a trace and you won't be able to start it again. Because you don't want to be able to start arbitrary random processes because then, anyway, so I can remember. Yeah, and so you've got multiple hosts. So I've actually got a Docker instance running on my laptop. I've got a Docker instance running inside VirtualBox on my laptop, which is also running Guvnor. As you can see, it's only got one CPU. substantially less RAM. So apps. Apps is something that's interesting. Essentially, if you have a Git repo somewhere on the internet that has a package.json file at its root, then you can use that to just create an app running this. So this is when I find out if people want to sleep on it. So if you test that. So obviously this app's very simple, but you don't want too much. So if I install my app, clone it, it will pull it down, and there you go. So it appears in the list. So I can now start this. So I can control the user in the group. So obviously I can't start it as root because Alex can't change the root, not without sudo, which it doesn't. So if I do that, it will fail. So I can change the group that it's running on. I can start it in debug mode, so that's like having --debug, debug break even at the start of your, when you start your application on the command line. So it will pause before the first command is executed. For that, you then fire up Node debugger with the debug button and carry on. But since I'm running hipster Node, so you can have extra arguments to Node, you can pass arguments to your program, and you can put as many environmental variables in as you like. Boom, so it starts it, and now it's running. Right. So look at the logs. So yeah, so it's another hello world. So we can do more things. So So this has some more interesting things in it. So it's gone off to npm now, if you saw very quickly. It went off to npm and it installed moment, which is in package.json. So I can set different refs. So if I've got branches and I've got tags and that kind of thing, maybe I don't always want to run master. Maybe I've got like a feature branch that I want to deploy and I want to test it. So I can install the app and I can select a branch. So if I select version 1, it's going to go off, do, start it running. In the logs it will tell me it's listening on port 9000. So I'm just going to go to local port 9000. Brilliant. So a request came in for version 1. So then stop the app. And then let's set the ref, version 3. Start it again. Start. Back to 9000, still good. But now in the logs, it's now version 3. Doing pretty well. So, of course, this is all fun because we all love running single process apps. What you really want is some clustering because you can't scale a single process node app, as everyone knows. So if I start my HTTP app, like apps that listen on WebSockets are fantastic for clustering because you can pass all the resources around, and it's basically what the node clustering module is made for. So if I start it with, say, four workers, start a bit, think about it. So right, so now we've got cluster manager, and we've got some workers. Now, the workers can be individually debugged, which is a new feature in Node 12. I'm not going to go into it. There is a reason. You can ask me in the pub afterwards. I'll tell you at length about it. Right, so you know that little slider in Heroku, right, which lets you change the number of workers that your app's got, and it gets really expensive at one end, cheap at the other. Well, look, we've got add worker, remove. It's not quite a slider, but
it doesn't cost as much either.
Your pull requests are great for your receipt. Yeah, it's a lot cheaper. So I can add a worker, and it's starting up. There it is. So now it's online, it's part of the cluster. It's waiting to receive traffic, and I can take them away as well. Right, Cool, so that's that. So that's kind of the web interface. Stuff. Security. It's one of the reasons that PMT was so easy to work with, and ultimately a really bad idea. In the earlier versions, the new one's okay, the new one's fine. Anyway, so the local connection, as I said earlier, is dnode over Unix sockets. So you've got two sockets dropped by the daemon. One is the user socket, and one is the admin socket. So the admin socket lets you do things like stop the daemon and do nasty things that users shouldn't be allowed to do. The user socket lets you do things like start processes and that kind of thing. Once you have started a process, you get a socket for that process. So each process exposes some RPC endpoints. And so by default, the user socket and the admin socket are owned by root, and then they're in the Guvnor group. So if your user is in the Guvnor group, you can connect to the user socket, but you have to be root because it's only user permissions to attach to the admin socket. Your process socket will be owned by you. It will be owned by the user that you tell Guvnor to start the process out. So you are safe from other users on the same system trying to trash your process. The remote connection, it's a bit more complicated. So obviously, with all this stuff, it all depends on you having a user account on the host system itself. When you're on a remote connection, obviously you can't guarantee that. So you've got dnode again, this time over TCP. Everything runs under SSL. So you can configure certificates if you have certificates. If you don't have certificates, then Guvnor will generate self-signed ones on startup, which is not secure. It's better than nothing. So dnode is new line delimited JSON, which is lovely, it's very simple. It also means it's quite trivial to fiddle with the message packet as it's going in and out. So what Guvnor does is it signs every single message that goes in and out per the individual user. So the message signature is basically that. There's a nonce, which means it protects against replay attacks. So you send a nonce along with, I don't know why they called it nonce. I didn't name this. I'll come on to that next. But so basically the nonce means you send it along with the request. The server keeps a record of the last user nonce, the last several user nonces, and rejects anything that uses one that's been used before. You got the time it was created. So you compare that to the actual server time, which means you can't send a fictitious time. And you say, right, well, this was older than 2 seconds, I'm going to reject this message. And then the user's token is unique per user. Old people in the room will recognize this as WSSE password digested. People use it to sign SOAP messages that go to web services. I didn't invent this, because rule number 1 of security and that stuff is don't invent anything. I didn't invent it, I robbed it from the internet. It's probably you should do your own audits, obviously. And of course, the user tokens are revocable on the server. So, Guvnor Web can connect to multiple hosts. So, in your Guvnor Web hosts file, you'll have several definitions of hosts you can connect to. It's pretty simple. Let's go through it really quickly. You've got a name. You can override the host. So you've got the name of the host. This will appear in the web interface. You've got the host it's going to connect to, the port it's going to connect to, the user it's going to connect as, and the user's secret, which was the token that I was talking about earlier. I should really rename that slide so it's a secret. Anyway, so that's the user secret. This is like the admin connection, if you like, and it should be the control user. These live in your home directory, and obviously shouldn't be viewable by anybody other than you. Use Unix permissions for that. Well, Windows users, I'm sorry. And so if you don't specify a host and port, it will use multicast DNS, MDNS, Bonjour, Rendezvous, ZeroConf, all that, to find so it will look for adverts on the local network, when an advert comes in, it will look up the host name that's being advertised and it will see if it's got some credentials for that server. If it has, it will connect to it. If not, then it'll ignore it. So in your users file, so you've got things like, so here's Alex, here's me. So when I first started the web browser, you would have seen the password pop up. I typed in my name, password. So the password is sorted in a hash and that. There's per host configuration, so you can override the user, right? So I might be Alex on this. At a work computer, my user ID might be Alex Potsides H2654982. Obviously, I'm not going to change the account on here, and I don't want to have to tie that to every single host I'm connecting to, so you can override the user you connect as on a per host basis. You've got your secret on that server. All this is used to sign those messages I was talking about earlier. And then, yeah, so you can have multiple hosts and multiple users, which is fun. Programmatic access. This is where it gets really interesting. Now I'm going to do some live coding, and it's probably where it's all going to go horribly, horribly wrong. Yeah, demo, so I'm going to demo some live coding. All right, so here we got my. So I'm just going to. Oh, great. I'm going to start an app that's actually running some. Okay, cool. So, connecting to Guvnor, you can get a daemon, an external event emitter. It's how many of you guys got? I really like wildcard event emitters because when you're exploring a system, you don't know what's going to happen. And, you know, sometimes they document everything, and sometimes they don't. It'd be lovely just to put an asterisk in there, and then you know you can discover it as you're going along. So, okay. Bigger than that. Okay, right. So, I've already installed Guvnor in Node modules because I don't have enough time for that. Great. So I can say local.net. So, right, so yeah, so you require Guvnor, you've got two interesting things you can get off it. I'm just doing that when trying to camera. Brilliant. Anyway, so yeah, local remote. Because on a local file system, there are default locations for where all the sockets are and that kind of thing, which is why I can connect without needing to supply any configuration. When you're connected to a remote server, obviously you need to do more, but this is like the simplest thing that could possibly work. So, right, okay. So do Node. Hopefully it's not going to work. Right, actually, we'll start new. You probably don't read this. I'm just going to start some processes that do some stuff. Brilliant. So you can see some stuff happening in the background. So I did a list. It's incoming connection from the client. That's my client ID. So you can see some stuff that's starting to happen. So you can see the login information is coming through as log events. Obviously you won't read it because it's all coloured. But yeah, so you see, it's in there somewhere. There's a lot of information that comes through, basically. So that's programmatic access. So we can do better, right? So we've got this thing where we can deploy apps from GitHub, and we can change the reps, right? And then we can scale the workers up into the clusters and that kind of stuff. And a pretty common way of doing it is say, right, well, you know, I've got this repository, and I'm going to push that repository, and then when I push that repository, it's going to deploy my app for me. Right, so it would be nice to just watch a repository and say, right, well, is there something running? Oh, so watch repository, is it going to change? Is it changed? Oh, it's changed, right, and then redeploy the app, right, so you can make your own directory. Could give that a go. This one's a bit more involved. I wish I didn't have crib notes, but I do. Because I'm on stage and I forget them. So there's a module in here already. I'm not going to go into it too much, but fundamentally all it does is it takes the URL, current ref, current commit, and it just runs ls remote. ls remote just says, right, show me all of the heads of all the refs of any remote repositories you have defined in your report. So all it's going to do is emit an event when the upstream branch changes. Right, so this is the last bit, and then we can go. No, I'm first. Everybody's favourite crutch. It's exactly the same things we saw before.
Function.
That again? I've misspelled it in a new and interesting way. So yeah, so I'm going to get a list of applications. I get a list of apps back, hopefully not an error. I'm just going to loop over them all. And I'm going to say current ref. Do shout out for making mistakes. So I mean, maybe you want to see me fail. Maybe you want to me to run it, and be like, oh, why? Right. So current ref will return you the current refs at the name of the branch you're in, and the last commit. So the app URL is where on the file system the repository is checked out. So ref and commit. So we're saying, this is the remote repository. So we're saying, watch this. When this is no longer this, tell me something interesting. Tell me something happened. Okay. So it will fire a change event, and it will say, right, well, this is the new commit. Great. So I can say console info, my thing is change. Right, and say now I want to do something. So now that I know the ref has changed, I want to stop the app that's running. I want to update, pull down the new stuff, and I want to start it again. So async series. So yeah, so the key that I can use to find the running process if it's running. So if there was no so if there's no process, this means it wasn't running. Pull back. Okay, so when I say process info, so whenever I get any process info from the daemon, I get a bunch of methods that I can use. One of them is kill. Hopefully I'm right. And then when I'm done, so everything takes a callback. It's all remote. So the callback is just disconnect from the process. So obviously when the process has died, there's nothing to be connected to anymore. But the local version of it still thinks it has a connection because it might come back later because it's over the network. So you know, it might have gone away, it might come back later. So anyway, so you explicitly say disconnect. And that's great. Great, so update rest is another one, so that's just going to pull down the latest versions of all the branches on the remote server. So everyone's itching to get to the pub. So now I'm going to start the app. So daemon start process. It's not going to be any error. Great. So, excuse the pyramid of doom. So we have watch it. Right. So the next thing we need to do is create a repository to watch. So I'm just going to use one of the ones from here, one of the app ones. So HTTP test we do. So I'm just going to start it up. I'm going to get rid of that one so that we don't have too much extraneous noise. So I can do that. So it's running. So if I do node index, so it's watching my repository, which is great. Hopefully we should see some stuff happen in there. So bring this back. So right, that's right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to change the version. Okay, cool, great, brilliant, well done. So let's remember that in here, when we visit 49,000, it says resting version 3. Tell you what, we can make this a bit more.
npm installing for you.
Oh yeah. Oh, there's something like yeah.
Whoa.
I do this for the last term.
But I like the start of the clapping. I was just glossed over that, and, you know, like, oh yeah, look, version 3, that's what I meant. No, wait, hang on, because I know what. Now, there's only one module. I think what's happened is I've got the wrong ref check there. So if I stop, yeah, okay, what's the master? Somebody want to do the countdown timer? So it did actually put it down, didn't restart it, so the problem was in my code. Use the backup.
The log is still saved number 4.
And now we go to the bar! Yeah. Never mind, that's enough. I think. Does anybody have any questions?
What's the uptime on the Barbara Brewbot?
It's not running at the moment. But yeah, I mean 6 weeks usually. Yeah.
I just want to say this is the most amazing thing in the world.
Yeah.
Changed my life. And also, I think maybe the problem at the end there, if you don't mind me saying,
No, go.
was I think you were pointing at npm's reference. So it was watching the Git repo, but it was trying to update against npm, which was still version 3 or whatever.
Right.
Is that possible?
So.
I don't want like spend the whole 5 minutes. Like,
No,
go on, that might be next. It seems to be getting 3 or 4 from npm.
So it's watching the Git repository.
But when it actually fetches it, like lower down.
Yeah. So.
From npm now. Oh, that's what I'm running now. I see. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So you can see it's updated the local ref, but for whatever reason, the local ref hasn't materialized into the. Yeah. It's a bug. Core request great fix.
This is seriously amazing. Really, really.
Great. Well, I hope you actually use it. Like, use it. You should totally use it. It's awesome. I built it. A little help from my friends. It's great.
Put the URL on screen.
Oh, yeah.
The repo.
What, the install?
Yeah. Or just the repo.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
There you go. Table flip / Guvnor.
Almost.
Isn't it? Oh, God, the sideways swipe thing. Any other question? There's actually a Brewbot that's kickstarted. It looks really nice. It's about this big. It's got like lovely wood paneling. And you're supposed to keep it in the corner of your office. Like, it sounds like a stupid idea. It sounds so dreadful.
Because you could come to Nodebots and build one yourself.
Yes.
Is the RESTful API?
No, but that's very good. Actually, I mean, it's sort of a RESTful API. So the web interface runs off of Untitled.js, if anyone cares. And there is a REST interface that it uses to pull down things like logs from before you first open the page and that kind of thing. So you could well expand that to do more.
So you mentioned forever at the beginning. I mean, would you swap this out for forever in production?
I would use this in production because I have to.
Yeah.
I have to say that at least.
Yeah.
You know.
So Table Flip has to use it in production.
Yeah, so it runs sort of Table Flip